There have been some stories of change, being enacted by many people here, and that is part of why we are here. We'll end this night by dedicating the garden just down there in memory of Aaron Scheerhoorn, which many of you do know his story. We'll be talking about that, and in the meantime, we are going to bring up Don Sinclair here in just a moment, who many of you know. He's a former PFLAG president. He's also a longtime pastor who lost his son Stanley back in 1979. He was stabbed here in Houston just for being who he is. So he is one of the many people with a story to share. And as a person of faith, he has helped many people over the years gain acceptance for being who they are. And he is here right now to lead us off in prayer. So please welcome Don Sinclair.
Let us bow for a moment. O Lord of all that is, to whom we all turn when the heaviness of life presses in upon our lives, we call upon you at this moment in time. And the violence in our world has taken some of our precious children and wonderful friends. We miss these who have been taken from us by the hatred of others. As we gather in remembrance of these golden and gifted ones, we pray for all those of us who remain, especially those gathered here today. And in the boldness of faith, we pray for those by whose hands and hatreds our loved ones' lives have been taken. May even those who committed the crimes that bring us together find their way to forgiveness and turn to be the ones who lead us all into the peace and love that is possible for us all as we overcome together. We pray this in the name of your Son, who also was slain by this world's violence and hate. Amen.
Which we'll hear more about in just a moment. Aaron was just down the street around the corner from here 8 months ago when his life was taken as well, the victim of a crime that we're all familiar with. His death has become a call for action for many people here, and it's also resulted in change. And many of you know that change is coming, in part because of the work that Charles Armstrong has done as well with helping develop this program to offer safe haven for people who may be in danger in this neighborhood. You can go ahead and clap. So Doug Anderson from the Aaron Scheerhoorn Foundation for Change will be here in a moment to share more about Aaron's life and the change that has come over the last 8 months. And also with us is Ann Robinson, who is the Executive Director of the Montrose Counseling Center. All of this could not be possible in part because, without her hard work, I should say. And she is known to many people here as someone who has lived life's calling by helping others. She'll speak a bit about that as well. So let's all welcome Doug and Ann. Have their thoughts.
There's a lot of people here. My name is Doug Anderson, and I am honored to be the president and a founding member of the Aaron Scheerhoorn Foundation for Change. Before I speak about Aaron and the foundation, I'd like to take a minute to thank some of the people that have made all of this possible. First, I'd like to thank Charles Armstrong. Without him, we wouldn't be here tonight. Also, Jose Apodaca from Charles Armstrong Investments. I'd also like to thank the Montrose Counseling Center, in particular Miss Sally Huffer, who has been instrumental in putting together this evening. And the garden, it's beautiful, And for that, I'd like to thank Glenwood Weber Landscape Designs. Just a few short months ago, the foundation was just a fledgling group of individuals. The Houston GLBT Community Center opened their arms and helped us get a footing, so I'd like to thank them also. The rest of what I would like to say, I think I'm going to talk to Aaron. When I first met you, Aaron, you impacted my life more than anyone ever, except for family. On December the 10th of 2010, my life changed forever. I was overwhelmed with sadness, overwhelmed with anger. I was angry at his killer, your killer, Aaron. I was angry at the bar doorman that turned him away, turned you away. And I was also angry at the crowd of people that watched what happened to you that night. A couple weeks later, I heard on the news about the incident in Arizona where a group of people helped catch and subdue the attacker for that congresswoman. And my anger just was amplified. Through a lot of help from God, Aaron, and a lot of terrific people, I've been able to direct my anger into a more positive direction. I was lucky to befriend a group of people that you knew, Aaron, and we've been able to come together and form this foundation in your honor. We wanted to honor you, Aaron, in the only way that we knew how, and that was to give back to the community. So we decided to give some gifts to the community in your honor and to remember you. And these gifts are as follow, Aaron. You were turned away that night from that doorman at that club after running up to him, asking for help, and he told you to go somewhere else. I can't fathom that type of apathy and indifference. It sickens me when I think about that. One simple act of kindness to let you inside, we wouldn't be here tonight honoring you and other victims. So we started the Safe Shelter program. That's an agreement with local businesses and clubs that if someone comes to their door in a situation of distress, they will be brought in and given assistance and the proper authorities called. The other program is the Aaron's Angels. The crime in this neighborhood has become overwhelming. When I first came here to Houston, and I've told you this story many times, it was like living in a small town, and Jack Valinsky said it best when he said that. Montrose was like living in a small town in the middle of a big city. And it's no longer like that. So we decided that we would make a change, and that change is Aaron's Angels. It's a Citizens on Patrol group. We're in cooperation with HPD, and are getting a lot of support from the community. Some of the other long-term goal that I hope the foundation can accomplish is to rid the community of the apathy that prevailed that night. And finally, our tree. It started off as a humble gesture of just honoring and remembering you, Aaron. And through the kind gift of Charles, we now have such a beautiful spot that it's permanently placed in. This little garden is a spot to remember all victims of violent crime, hate crimes, and bullying. I've had the opportunity to look over some of the crime victims and the circumstances in their deaths, and it's just unacceptable. It sickens me when I read some of the circumstances. So we have placed your tree in this little garden as a way to remember you and these other victims. And I just hope that this will be a little place of healing for other families and friends of other victims of violent crime, hate crimes, and bullying. I'm so very honored and humbled to be here tonight. There's a lot of people that would like to speak that are a whole lot more important than I am. I just want to thank all of you for attending, and again, I just wanted to thank those members that I mentioned in the beginning that they've made my personal dream and the goals of our foundation come true. Thank you all.
Montrose Counseling Center, and I've been with Counseling Center more than 20 years. And my job is to tell you that there's hope and that there are places to go and to take your loved ones if they've been a victim of a violent crime. We particularly serve the GLBT community. All of our services in our anti-violence program are very targeted to that. We provide services for same-sex domestic violence, sexual assault, hate crimes, which many of these are. And we've started new programs on bullying and human trafficking. And many of you know we have a 24-hour hotline, the Gay and Lesbian Switchboard of Houston. You can call at any time and get a volunteer or a staff member to help you and help you figure out what it is that you need. But if you look at the front of the program, you will see 36 victims. These names, these crimes go back more than 20 years. And if you will look at the 36, a third of them are transgender. A third of them are people of color. The least honored in this group have been the transgender people. And so I want you to take a minute to think of them and think of the pain they have gone through, because they have been bullied, they have been taunted in school, they have been murdered. But I appreciate all of you for being here. I thank Charles and Jose for doing this. But please remember that there is hope and there are places to go if you need services. Thank you.
There is still much more change required. A lot of it has happened in Austin at the State House. Texas has toughened its laws, but as many people here know, it's simply not enough in some cases. And one of the stories that comes to mind is of bullying. It's been a problem for so many people, for children especially, for many of us over so many years. But it's increasingly made headlines over the past year or two, and Asher Brown's story comes to mind. Many of you knew Asher as that 13-year-old from Cy-Fair who took his life last year after being harassed in his school for about 2 years. Because of that, his death did get the attention of lawmakers here in Texas who worked for many months to pass an anti-bullying bill, and that is what happened. John Whitmire, who many people here know as the Dean of the Texas Senate, he helped pass this bill many months ago, and he recently wrote to the parole board to try to revoke the release of John Weiss, who killed Paul Broussard in this neighborhood not too far from here. John is with us tonight, so please give him a welcome as well.
Thank you very much. Thank the sponsors for allowing me to play a small role here tonight. Mr. Anderson, no one on this stage or podium is more important than you. We're all equal here tonight, and that's what this ceremony is about. As I gather before you tonight, I can't keep from sharing my experiences of 38 years in public office, of having participated in just about every type of service you can imagine. Happy ones, sad ones, have given eulogies at funerals. But tonight I cannot keep from recognizing how significant and special this one is. And what strikes me about this service is how avoidable it could be. Think about why we're here tonight, the memory of the victims. each and every one of them did not have to happen. We would not have to be here tonight except for hatred, hate crimes, and human acts. These are not natural disasters that we're talking about that would be unavoidable. We do not have to be here tonight. And our goal and our objective and our common goal is to see that it ends tonight. Many people say make the penalties more harsh as a deterrent and to punish those who are perpetrators. We've done that, and it would only be proper for me right now to stop and recognize the sponsor of the hate crime legislation. We worked so diligently. The problem in Austin is other members know that they're hate crimes, but they're in denial. They do not want to admit that sexual orientation will cause you to be beaten and killed. It's documented and been people prosecuted and convicted. Rodney Ellis, a senator from Houston, worked hard and accomplished that goal. I watched Rodney. We could not pass it initially because the Republicans and others insisted that sexual orientation be left out. Rodney, I, Sophronia, and others joined hands and said it will not pass unless that language is in it. We successfully met that goal. But that was not enough, because just prosecuting someone does not accomplish the goal of prevention. First, the real significant way to prevent it is to acknowledge that it exists, to talk about it like we are tonight, that hate crimes do exist. And so how do you prevent it? Next, you have to let public officials, school officials, have policies in place to prevent it, acknowledge it, and hold someone accountable if they look the other way. And that's what we did this session. We passed an effective bullying bill. School administrators, public officials must have a policy in place. Parents cannot be turned away. They will have a designated school administrator to meet with and do this. You will deal with the bullier, and you will certainly show compassion and interest in the person, the victim. Let me close by saying our goal tonight, as we honor the victims that this garden will so recognize, is to honor them, is to protect the living. Those of us here tonight and future generations. So let's recommit ourselves tonight to prevention, avoidance, and public recognition that hate crimes exist. We're not going to tolerate it. No more hate crimes should be the message that we leave here tonight. Thank you for having me.
For many years, and a recent report from government was interesting. Nationally, this report said that hate crimes, or at least some kinds of hate crimes, are on the decline in all 50 states. But another report, and this is what happens with the reports all the time, they found that wasn't the case with all hate crimes. And that leads us to this. This report that was released just last week said that after civil rights advancements like what we saw in New York just last week with the same-sex weddings, they see a spike in hate crimes against certain kinds of people, and that's what New York is seeing now. And that is something that obviously does have the attention of many lawmakers here in Texas. Like John, Mario Gallegos and Rodney Ellis have spent many years as well trying to make a difference in the lives of people here in Texas. They're both here tonight, and they're going to come up now to share some thoughts on tonight as well.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Let me first say, I had some prepared remarks, but let me tell you, somebody that's felt discrimination. Discrimination is everywhere, whether it be sexual orientation, or the color of your skin, whatever other reason. I have felt it. I have felt it during my upbringing, and especially in the Houston Fire Department and in the early years. And I know what it means. I know how it feels to be discriminated against. And I stand here before you, knowing how it feels. And the issue that we tackled in the legislature this year, the bullying issue, obviously we need to do that. What we've done in the past with the hate crimes bill and Rodney Ellis. I have another colleague here, Garnet Coleman, I know he's here, he's going to speak also. But I just want to say that these things, those of us in office, we can stop it. Senator Whitmire said those that want to turn the other cheek or turn the other eye or don't want to admit it. It's there. It's been there. It's always been there. But we can obviously, those of us in positions of power and to change laws, we can change it, especially those that have felt it. You know, God gave me a second chance. You know, I've had cirrhosis of the liver, and, you know, whatever ills that are out there, we need to also look at that too. In age legislation, you know, those types of issues that affect us and affect these neighborhoods that we're in. I know how it is to have a second chance. I've been there, done that. I'm a transplant patient. So I think that tonight I did want to mention on the dedication here at this corner, I did want to mention the tragic story of David Richardson. He was assaulted in 2006. You all remember him. And he lived, though. And there were unspeakable acts that were committed. And there was racial slurs done. And David did not seek help to deal with the after effects of that senseless hate crime that was committed to him. But I want to say that resources now, like the Montrose Counseling Center, is available. And probably could have helped David, you know. And but I want you to know that there's help out there. It's fortunate that when somebody goes for help and they close the doors, if the Montrose Counseling Center isn't open, go to a fire station. You know, if there's a fire station close, I know there's one here close. They'll open the door. I promise you, they'll open the door to you. But I wanted this tonight. I'm happy to be part of this celebration, this corner, this garden, and I also want to thank Mr. Armstrong, Charles, and the Montrose Counseling Center for everything you do out there. Thank you, and God bless you.
My name is Rodney Ellis. Good evening. My colleagues have already said everything that I want to say, and I'm sure Garnet Coleman is going to say it even better, so I won't say it again. I am pleased that there's so many people here tonight. I think that when you do a memorial like this and you have a monument, it's important that you use it as an opportunity to try and touch the souls of people who might not understand, who might not be as tolerant. You know, John, when I think about how it took a decade to pass that hate crime bill, it is the one area in public policy, where Texas did beat the federal government. Because it was not until the current administration that they could pass a hate crimes bill on the federal level and include sexual orientation in that statute. So it's one area where we were ahead, and we ought to be proud of that. I want to make this last appeal to you. Elections do matter. And as important as it is to try to reach the soul and touch the heart, to somehow get to the conscience of people, it also is important to throw some of them out of office because you might not get it. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Rodney, for that. We've heard the name Asher Brown come up several times tonight, and there's a reason for that. The subject of youth suicide is something that people always kind of have in the back of their minds, but don't always bring to the forefront for conversation, and we'll do a bit of that right now. It ranks in probably the top 3 or 4 causes of death for people under 24 in this country, and that's a number that sometimes a lot of us seem to forget. I remember, for one, being in the 6th grade many years ago in South Florida when we heard on the morning announcement one day that our classmate Nicole had taken her own life. She had stood in front of an oncoming train. And at that age, we didn't know. We knew she kept to herself, that she had maybe had some problems with her family at home, but beyond that, we knew little about her until that day, and we wondered, could something have been done different? We mentioned the legislation that was recently passed to give schools the tools to help teachers and administrators and parents look for early warning signs. Garnet Coleman, as you know, was part of that, and we're going to bring him up here right now to maybe share. You not ready? Come on, come on. he'll talk a bit about that and give us some more insight on things being done to help children here in Texas.
I'm going to try to be brief because I think it's important to be brief. Back in 1997, Harriet Earhart, a member of the Texas legislature from Dallas, filed a bill to end bullying, particularly because of the hurt, both physical and mental and emotional, to GLBT youth in Texas, 1997. A group of us helped her then, and then she left the legislature. When she left the legislature, I picked up the bill and started filing it to try to pass it with the help of with Equality Texas, which was then LGRL, and trying to make sure that we got this issue solved because it clearly was having an impact on children's lives. 1997. Here it is, where it was we have to get to 2011 before a piece of legislation to protect children from being harassed and hurt in their school. That's too long. And there were people who actively stopped it, actively made sure that it never got a hearing in the Education Committee. After the 3 deaths over the summer and last year, I said, maybe we're approaching this wrong because I'm sitting up here and filing this bill and can't get it passed, can't even get a hearing from Eisler in the Public Ed Committee. So I said, look, clearly this is a public health issue because we can deal with it as a discipline issue, but in the final analysis, if children are killing themselves, then it's the emotional trauma that is causing a problem for them enough to take their lives. But what about if they didn't take their life? The emotional trauma will affect them for the rest of their lives. So that's when I wrote the suicide prevention bill, because it was very important to make sure that school officials and parents knew to look at the early warning signs of any emotional distress, but in particular because of harassment and bullying. And what I hope is that in combination with the bill that was passed on bullying, that these two bills come together to save lives. The next thing, when I got elected in 1991 with the support of this community, and I so remember, it's not just Asher Brown, not just Eric, but I so remember when Paul Broussard was killed. His mother started calling our office the first time any one of the group of people who were involved in that murder was up for parole. We started actually sending letters in 1994. And here we are, 2011, and the discussion is about whether a group of people who actually committed a murder should be paroled in that case. And I just don't think that should be the thing that is done. And Andy, of course, knows that. Last piece, hate crimes. Rodney did, and everyone did a great job. I just went into the legislature in '93 when the attempt to pass hate crimes occurred. And just like everywhere in this country, the idea is to have people from the GLBT community protected. But I want to talk to you about the T, because in no bill is there protection for transgendered individuals. And I've been filing a bill to include transgendered people in the hate crimes bill. It is very clear that because of that, we're not finished with our work until everyone is protected under the hate crimes legislation that we have. I am proud to be here. This is my legislative district. I'm proud to be a member of this community, and I'm proud that this community is honoring the people who have made the sacrifice for the rest of us to continue to live our lives free and without hindrance. And we need to do everything we can to keep that from happening to other people. So, those are my remarks. I would. And now I'm going to bring you the remarks from David and Amy Trong, the parents of Asher Brown. When a lot of this happened, I know there was a lot of news stories, and and everybody was doing whatever it was. And I can't imagine as a parent, I can't ever feel as a parent what it's like to lose your child and have your child murdered. I don't know how they have withstood this, and it's because the community has put their arms around them. So let me read their statement. First, we want to thank God for bringing everyone together today to honor the lives of so many in such a thoughtful way. Last September, we lost our son, Asher, to suicide as a result of bullying. Asher was a very intelligent and compassionate human being who appreciated the beauty of all those around him. Our hope is that people will come here and reflect on those things and the compassion and beauty. Asher also loved the outdoors and often helped us in the garden at home, which makes this tribute all the more fitting. The lives of all the people memorialized here were special. They had meaning and they had worth. These tragedies never should have taken place, and we don't want any other families to go through the same sorrow as we and the other parents have who lost children due to a culture that breeds and nurtures violent and hurtful behavior. Lastly, we want to thank all the people who have supported us, prayed for us, and took the lessons that have come from our loss to heart and trying to create change in their own lives and in the lives of others. Out of these tragedies like ours, through the combined efforts of so many people, the great state of Texas now has the first ever comprehensive anti-bullying and suicide prevention laws. Together, we will move mountains. God bless Amy and David Trong, Asher's mom and dad. This is really a happy occasion. It's a happy occasion because victims who were not from the suburbs and whatever else, they weren't victims. They were people who just got killed. The victims were somebody else. And I'm so glad that Andy's here and that we recognize that the victims are anyone who is a victim of a crime, and that it doesn't matter their race, ethnicity, gender, amount of money they have, or anything else, and that our government should work to protect them. And I'm glad we're here today recognizing that these victims are equal in their importance to everybody else in this state. Thank you for letting me be here.
Quite a few other people had hoped to be here tonight, but they couldn't because of other commitments, including lawmakers Jessica Farrar and Scott Hochberg. What they've done is written letters to share with all of you, which we've put on a website. If you look at the back of your programs, you'll find the website there. You can read those letters and some other ones that we'll be putting up in the next couple of days. We want to recognize a few people who are here in the audience tonight, including Houston's First Lady, Kathy Hubbard. She's here as well. Sarah Malachy from Jessica Farrar's office is somewhere out there. Back there. Also, Harris County Attorney Vince Ryan is here. Chief J.C. Moser from Constable Jack Abercia's office. And Crystal Webster from Congressman Al Green's office is here as well. The next person we'll hear from is someone that I've gotten to know over the last 5 years working here in Houston, and someone who's dedicated his life to this, Andy Kahn, who spent many years advocating on behalf of victims of crime. Not much of an introduction needed for Andy since we know him so well, but we'll give him a few minutes here. He is one of these people, one of the few people in the country doing the job he's doing for a major police department, and he's helped so many families get through their darkest days over the past several decades he's been here in Houston. He's still doing that now through HPD's Crime Victims Assistance Office. As we said earlier, his dedication is impossible to miss, and Andy is here right now to share some thoughts.
Actually, I'm here on a twofold measure. I'm here on behalf of Nancy Rodriguez. Nancy is Paul Broussard's mother. She wishes she could be here and give everybody a hug for what you have meant to her for over 2 decades. And in particular, she would really like to thank you, Charles, for the kindness and support in her battle and what you made your battle for justice for over 20 years, for making this memorial special to her, and for including her family, and especially Paul. Nancy told me today that she's reminded every time that she looks at a family or a photo of Paul, the joy of having him for her son, as well as the hurt, pain of losing him to 10 men for their hate and ignorance. She asked me today to remind and recognize that society as a whole suffers from all hate crimes. Before there was a Matthew Shepard and a James Burr Jr., there was Paul Broussard. And Paul has left a lasting legacy, not just in this community, but on a whole for victims' rights. Nancy, Paul's mother, has set a precedent for victims. Nancy was the first person in Harris County and the state of Texas that had actual input into the sentencing of the offenders. And sadly, she holds a dubious honor. She has attended more parole hearings than any other survivor in this state and probably in this country. That's really sad that she's had to endure this, and all at her own expense, flying in from Georgia. But she's paved the way because she believes in justice for her son, Paul. Paul was a bright 27-year-old graduate from Texas A&M, working in the banking industry. Simply came out, gave directions to 10 young men, and then the most horrible, cruel, diabolical act fell upon him. And luckily for the 2 others, they escaped. Otherwise, we could be talking about more than just Paul today. They are fortunate. But you know, what's happening right now, and as State Representative Coleman alluded to, it's an affront. The fact that the Texas Parole Board has paroled and has given approval to the individual who is primarily responsible for taking Paul's life. And this individual has not even served half of his sentence. What kind of message is that sending not only to this community, but to all victims and all survivors of homicide? That's a chilling message. So there's a challenge that Nancy has asked me to give everybody here today. Your voice needs to be heard once again, loudly and clearly. And I know Paul is looking up right now and is asking for your assistance and your help. And I know he's smiling and cheering at his mom for taking up the mantle that all she's doing is asking for justice, not just for Paul, but for all victims, not of hate crimes, not only of hate crimes, but of all murders, not just in Harris County, but throughout the state. She asked me to sincerely thank Senator Whitmire, who, after initially finding out upon the fact that the individual was approved for parole, wasted no time in voicing his concern and opposition, not just by sending a letter, but by placing personal phone calls, and still to this day, he is trying everything he can. State Senator Rodney Ellis, once again, a champion. And State Representative Coleman, like you said, for almost over a decade, we have been battling and battling and battling. Nancy needs your help. Hoping that everybody can hear her voice and hear Paul and do what needs to be done and send that message loud and clear.
Was just given a note that the Harris County Sheriff Adrian Garcia had hoped to be here. Instead, Alan Rosen is here on his behalf, so let's thank him for being here as well. And Jack Walensky from Councilmember Jalama Jones's office is also here. Let's give him a thank for being back tonight. We're going to move things out here to the quarter in just a moment, and I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're going to do. We're going to walk out, and we'll grab balloons there from that. Looks like a pretty secure area there, so those balloons don't fly out. We'll be releasing balloons here in a few moments. And once we're out there, we'll read the names of the victims that we're remembering tonight. And we'll light a candle and also have a moment of silence. And to help us do all that, I want to bring up Laura Groen from Grace Lutheran Church. She'll take over from here.
I don't know if I'm going to help you with the balloons, because I didn't know about balloons. I thought we were doing names here and then walking over. Okay. This is what... What's that? Are we picking up balloons with candles? Okay. We're going to get balloons and candles. Can y'all hear me? Am I the right distance from here? Okay. We are lighting candles tonight. And you all know this drill. Candles, the fire on them symbolizes our memory. And it symbolizes our sadness. The fire also is our anger. The fire that we're spreading is our power. The fire that we're lighting is our ability to change the world. Our fire is our power for healing. Our fire is the goodness that's within each one of us. So as I read these names and we begin to light our candles slowly, 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 as the names are read, our power and our love and our strength will be growing as you light your candle and pass it to the next and pass it to the next. And then as our power and our love and our strength grows and reaches a grand potential, we'll move and we'll walk over to the garden and we will surround the memory of those victims with our love. So, do we have a lighter for our candles? All right, we do have the source of the fire. I'll light my candle and I'll pass it to those behind me and they shall pass it around, and then at the edges you can come and get the light and pass it among you all so that our power and our fire spreads. Stanley Sinclair, Fred Hayes, Dale Sweet, Marion Cancer, Charles Hebert, Jose Shima Silva, Thomas Hammerton, Paul Broussard, Juan Manuela Meyer Laris, Philip Smith, Michael Berzinski. Oh, the fire is still going. Fred Mangione. Mark Koss. Laren Morris. Kevin Trials. Steve Dwayne Garcia. Brian Chadwick Good. Julia Gonzalez. Karen Randy Honeycutt. Francisco Suave Luna. Nathan Frank Mills.
Uh-oh.
Michael
Got somebody.
Hendrick Cinnamon. Ross Allen. Nancy Wilson. Christina Smith. Kenneth Cummings Jr. Noel Daniel Davis. Myra Channel Eichel. Gypsy Rodriguez. Asher Brown. Joshua Wilkerson. Aaron Michael Scheerhoorn. Edie Davis. And all those victims unknown to us.
Hey, can I speak tomorrow? Yeah, I got somebody here who wants to talk to you. Hello? Yeah, I didn't know.
Pride Superstar contestant Brittany Collins, who I saw just a second ago. She's out here somewhere.
She is here.
Making her way over this way. She'll have a performance for us here in just a few moments. But first I want to bring in Freddie Jensen, who lost her youngest son in 2008. She's here and she's going to share some words with us about hope and healing.
My name is Freddie Jensen, and I'm so thrilled to see the city of Houston represented as it is this evening. So I do want to say some things. The choice is not gay or straight, but rather love or hate. The issue is not who we love, but if we love. Love is based on truth. Hate is based on fear. Love and fear can't coexist. They cannot occupy the same space at the same time. It's impossible. Only one has to go. Only one in our hearts, in our minds, and that's reflected in our actions. We all make constant choices because we're human beings, whether to live lives based on fear or love. Some people might say there's a fine line between love and fear. They're both strong passions. In fact, those are the only emotions we human beings experience, and every other emotion is based on those. I don't care what kind of label we put on that fear, whether it's discrimination, prejudice, prosecution, I don't care what it is. It all comes down to fear. And people project their fears onto others, and that's where the problem is. Fear and love, two sides of the same coin, but they produce totally, entirely different worlds. We do have a built-in mechanism that triggers the fight or flight syndrome as human beings. If I see a tornado over there, I'm not going to stand here and try to analyze how long it's going to take for that tornado to reach me. I'm going to go for shelter. That's what I'm going to do. That is a built-in fear, a fight or flight mechanism. That is a healthy fear. The problem with our world today is that we have unhealthy fear all around us. Our world is filled with unhealthy fear. All we have to do is turn on the television or the radio or pick up a newspaper or go online. And we have people willing to tell us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, what we need to be afraid of. And if we forget what to be afraid of, they gleefully remind us what to be afraid of at no additional cost. It's always there for us. We chose to leave fear behind tonight, no matter what label was put on that fear. Each one of us has chosen to live this night based on love. And each one of us has chosen to step forward and celebrate those whose lives were taken. When tragedies happen and people leave us, we're called upon to make some pretty tough decisions. When we lose those we love, those people who have actually contributed to helping us become the people we are today, that's a huge loss. I know from experience. But do we allow grief to consume our lives? Do we allow bitterness to become our outlook on life? Or do we use our grief as a springboard to effect change in our world? That's what we're doing tonight. If Aaron had not been taken from us on December 10th, 2010, we wouldn't be dedicating this beautiful garden. And Houston wouldn't have been called to step up to the plate to continue its evolution in love like it's doing tonight. If Noel hadn't been taken from us on May 19th, 2008, there's no way I'd be standing here in front of a group of people, reaching into the depths of my soul to communicate with you. There wouldn't have been a need. But we are here because there is a need. There is a need in our city. There are people hurting right now. Maybe you, maybe some of you, for whatever reason. Maybe you're in pain because you've been taught that you're not okay the way you are. Maybe you're feeling guilty because of who you are, because you were born this way. The fact is that you are okay, just the way you are. The choice is not gay or straight. It's love or hate. We're here tonight as an expression of our love. We're here tonight because we are being the change we want to see in the world. There are undoubtedly many names we could have honored here this evening. We only know a few, and even one is too many. Fear is a powerful guidance system in a human being's life, but love is more powerful. The passing of our loved ones is not supposed to distance us from each other. Our future does not lie in isolation. It lies in the strength of our coming together in truth. The dedication of this Montrose Remembrance Garden is evidence that the footprints of those who have fallen cannot be erased from our hearts. They will always be in our thoughts, and we'll continue to honor them and their sacrifices by focusing on the love, not the fear, surrounding us. I've said for years that the only thing that matters in any given situation is the love we leave behind. That's it. That's the only thing that matters. We still have the love of those who have gone before us tonight. They're still here. I know Noel is still here with me, guiding me and helping me and loving me. And from what I've heard about Aaron, that young man, I didn't get to meet him, but I feel I know him, he certainly had a hand in this, you know. So they are here with us. There's no doubt in my mind Noel still talks to me. And I want to go to this one final page. I always take notes so I make sure that I'm saying everything I intended to say. The purpose of our gathering tonight is twofold: to honor those whose lives were taken, and to serve as a foundation going forward as a community in love and unity, and to support those of us left behind. There is no reason for anyone to ever feel alone, ever. The choice is not who we love, but if we love. I love you, and I am so glad you're all here. Thank you so much for letting me be here and share. And this has been healing for me on so many levels, and I consider it a privilege to be able to interact with this community. Thank you.
Oh, now the balloon release?
Now we got to do the singing.
Now we're going to do the balloon release. I forgot. So do I get the microphone back for that?
Probably.
Somebody look at the program.
And then she's going to sing when we do the balloon release?
I hear music.
Yeah.
Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, before a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction or a beautiful release. Memories seep from my face, let me be empty. Oh, in a way less, and maybe I'll find some peace tonight. In the arms of an angel, fly away from here, from this dark hotel room, and the endlessness that you feel. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. You're in the arms of an angel. May you find some comfort here. So tired of the straight line and every way you turn. There's vultures and thieves at your back. The storm keeps on twisting. Keep on building the life that you make up for all that you lack. It don't make no difference. Just give me one last time. It's easier to believe in this sweet madness. Oh, this glorious sadness that brings me to my knees. You're in the arms of an angel. Fly away from here, from this dark cold hotel room, and the endlessness may you find some comfort here. You're in the arms of an angel. May you find some comfort here.
I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's been, we try to keep this at about an hour. It's just after 9 o'clock right now. So thanks again for coming out. Thanks again for lighting candles and for taking a stand, for remembering all those we've lost here in Houston over the past many years. Have a great night.
Bravo.